same way we always do, taking a big breath in, a bit of silence, thinking about what the last week has been like, the highs, the lows, what you like to carry with you into the Sabbath, and what you'd like to leave behind. Let's change it 1 second, Celia. I'm going to do it a little differently this time. If you could just turn to a neighbor, someone next to you, and just tell them a gift from this week. One gift from this week. It sounds like there's lots of gifts, which is awesome. And if you have something that's happened recently in your life you'd like to share, Sela's going to kick us off. Something good in your life, Sela, what's going on?
Well, we just came back from a whole month in Israel.
A whole month in Israel?
Yeah, and it was great.
Wonderful. Welcome back. I'm glad.
Thanks.
What else? Go ahead.
Okay, I want to thank GPS for providing such a wonderful potluck dinner last Friday
Oh.
night. And instead of, we were all so full from eating, nobody even said anything.
Yes, you had 30 GPS friends having potluck together. Wonderful. What else?
Somebody's daughter's car there.
I know, someone's car.
Someone, I think, just ran out.
It'll be all right. There's a cop right there.
Battery got the.
Yeah. What else besides car alarms? One more thing. Give me one more. Jan.
My friend from high school, Barbara, came from out of town and she's here tonight.
Ooh.
So very blessed.
Wonderful. Welcome, Barbara. So with that, we want to welcome any guests who are here that would like to introduce themselves. You don't have to, but would like to know who you are. Barbara, you have to start. Wonderful. Glad you're here.
And I have my family here,
Yes.
Nick and Carly.
Glad you're here. No babies.
Yeah, no, not
No babies. Go ahead.
My name's Reagan.
Reagan, nice to see you here. Wonderful. Welcome. I think that's good. And then if you're online, we are so glad that you're tuning in with us, choosing to worship with us, even though you're not part of our physical space. We're glad you're with us. And a special hello to Lois. I know that she was raking leaves really hard, and so we're glad that you're still joining us in prayer in this way. So with that, we're going to continue with the beginning of our service on page 2 and 3 with the lighting of the Sabbath candles. We're so happy to have our choir here with us today. Joyce, thank you for...
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat. O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer. together on page 8. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. We'll continue with Yedid Nefesh on page 10. We'll continue on page 20, welcoming the Shabbat as if she were a queen. On page 1, 2, 5, and then we'll rise with 9. Verse 5. Shabbat nekabela v'chatodim likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela v'wi v'shalom atar v'bala gam b'simcha u'tola tov emunei standing as we continue on page 26 of the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yikadal v'yikadal shumei rabba.
Amen.
Av yivrachu te v'yamlik malhute.
V'chayechanu yomecha u'chayetecha b'nei Yisrael. V'akalam yisman kariv v'yimeru. Amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'olam olam me'omaya.
Yitbarak v'yishtavach yitbar v'yirama v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudashah
Brihu
L'mincha b'chata v'shirata
Tushbechata lenechamata tamira mi'alma. We continue on page 28 with our call to worship. We read together at the bottom of page 30. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, ruling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Continue with the watchword of our faith on page 34. Page 36. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol lebavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'otecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinatam levanecha b'ribat habam b'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha havaterach ושוכבך ובחומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, היו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. So I was doing this training this week on how to hold spaces. How do you talk to people and encourage good conversations? And it gave me a lot to think about, mostly because I found most of it very annoying. And I thought, well, that says a lot about me, that it's so hard to listen to people who are different than you. And I came out with all kinds of self-wisdom in that way, of like what's happening, and then also lots of really practical tools. And there was one point where I went aside with someone who I actually knew really well. We just happened to both sign up for the same thing, and I guess friends do that. And I've known him for a long time, and he had spent about 3 years of his life working in the Palestinian territories. And we know that, he knows I'm a rabbi and all those different things. And so we've been in this session, just the two of us, for 3 hours. So there was a lot of connection. And I was like, can we just draw and watercolor a little bit while we talk? And he's like, yeah. And so we're sitting there doing it. And quietly he turns to me and he said, so what do you think about the settlement thing? And I said, oh, what do you think I think about it? And he said, actually, I'm asking because I generally don't know. And I found that really surprising, that we knew a lot about it. We know each other really well, so we know each other's political stances, we knew each other's different things. And yet when it came to Israel, there was this pause. And we had this really amazing conversation about it. And we talked about what is the existential truth of what Jews are seeking right now. That if the top priority for us is the well-being and longevity of Israel, then how is that connected to the well-being of the Palestinian people? How do we sort of look at it that way? And I thought, oh, that's so true of sort of any country, right? How good is our country is based on the well-being of the most vulnerable people in that. And are we answering that question when we're sort of looking for those sort of things? And then how are we as a government sort of contributing or taking away from those places? And it was this healthy moment of where between two people we could sort of grapple with an issue, and neither of us really revealing too much, but just to think about what's the question we're answering. And I think about parts of this week politically maybe think we were closer to some kinds of political agendas that I wasn't expecting, and other times we stepped back. And I don't know if you were watching the hearings, all that stuff was in the soup of this week. And then of course the Jews are thrown into the soup always, right? And Jews and Israel connected in those conversations. And they walk away thinking, well, I don't know if the two-state solution is dead. I don't know if peace is possible. I don't know who our president's going to be. I don't know any of those things. But I can believe that when two people look at each other, that I can get a little closer to what I hope the whole world will look like. And that if we just ask each other, what do you actually think? And do it from this non-judgmental place, maybe we just take one step closer to that. So with that energy, I don't know if anyone else was having those conversations this week, but for me, it's really pressing into this space that we have this prayer Hashkivenu that talks all about sort of the shadow world, right? This darkness in the world. And it comes way before the peace prayers, that we live in this really complicated world, and we often forget that part of the shadows is what makes the whole sketch beautiful in the first place. And that's how we connect to one another. So with that energy and spirit, we'll continue on page 42. We continue on page 44 with the joy of passing Shabbat from one generation to the next. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berith olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berith olam. B'nei b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berith olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berith olam. U'bayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berith olam. Please rise if you're able as we continue with Tefillah, beginning on page 46.
Elohim
be seated. Let's read together on page 57. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, and our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. Let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, sha'orcha levarcha b'yirah na'avod. We'll continue with Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace on page 60. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasiyim le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasiyim le'olam. Ki atahu melech adom, lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adom, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasiyim le'olam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael amcha, tasiyim le'olam. B'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael. B'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Of course, in our prayers for abundant peace, we need first to think about healing and possibilities for wholeness. We call to mind all those who are in need of healing in body, mind, and spirit, those in hospital beds and in nursing facilities, those in their own homes, those who struggle with both seen and unseen difficulties like deep grief and addiction, the many difficult decisions that might lay in front of them. And we also include in our prayers all those who remind us that healing is possible, doctors and nurses and caregivers and therapists and family and friends. If you'd like to share a name of someone who's in need of healing or share your own name, please do so now.
Jerry Shopper.
Judy Rabita, Dawn Kaplan, Bob Rubin, Paul Colback, Nancy Stella, Meredith Clapp, Sharon Slessman.
Alondra Johnson, Karen Horowitz.
David.
George Zenny, Daniel Redison, Johnny Redison,
Sarah Godin. Arnold Apple now.
Judy Avner, Jackson Bachman, Sarah Bachman, Mira Barner, Corinne Belford, Sheila Boniface, Loretta Hubbard, Chava Leah, Leonard Appel, Ken Goldman, Dr. Merrill Goldman, Charles Gutman, Judith Gutman, Ethan Kadish, Gita Knudsen, Skylar Kuntz, Yael Kraus, Lee Kernick, Elaine Heitfield, Tony Janitas, Ira Lerner, Jean-Marcel Lefebvre, Lou Levy, Joan Lieb, Barry Levy, Marcy Maxwell, Ellie Mendelson, Rhoda Meyer, Eileen Ness, Nancy Newmark, Phil Ryan, David Rose, Bob Rubin, Irish Shum, Archbishop Chuck Smith, Mary Capoletti Stanton, Lisa Steele, Fran Sternberg, Mahaya Stoneman, Chaim Ben Yaakov, and Nechama. We include everyone we mentioned out loud and those we hold in our hearts as we're all on a journey towards healing in some way. We'll continue on page 253 if you want to follow along with me. Misha Berach Avotenu ve'imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Livarech et acholim ha'ele HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Alehem Lahach li'imam v'tam chazikam Vayishlach lahem meher refuah shlema min hashamayim Refuat ha'nefesh refuat ha'guf Hashta bagalal vizman kariv ben Omar. Before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mikor habracha those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. We take a few moments for private prayer, either the words of your prayer books or the words of your heart. During breakfast a couple days ago, my 6-year-old turns to me and she goes, "You know, Mom, there's no Santa." And I was like, "Oh, really? No Santa, huh?" And I said, "Why are you bringing it up?" And she goes, "Well, I just realized there's no Santa." And Magnolia, my 3-year-old, was like, "Yeah, there's no Santa." And I was like, "Okay, well, would you talk about it at school?" And she goes, "Well, no. But, you know, everyone kind of knows." I said, "No, everyone doesn't know." And there I just went on to teach her, which I think that most little Jewish kids get taught at some point, the special gift of being the Jewish kid is that you get to hold the secret and you don't spoil it for anybody else. And so then she went through the list. Well, this person knows this person. I said, no, they don't. They don't know. And I kept thinking, like, you think the tooth fairy is real? Like, come on. Like, like, your truth isn't so real. And it got me thinking. And then the teacher sent home this assignment that they, all the little kids got parts at the Thanksgiving feast in first grade, and her job is to dress as a Native American. And I thought, ooh, that's perfect, blonde hair, blue eyes, just right. And like, I felt really uncomfortable. Like, should I send a smallpox blanket too? Like, it just feels like really uncomfortable. Come on, you're there too. It's uncomfortable. It's like a different world right now. It's different. Like when I was little, that was the first thing we were talking about, just Santa, and now it's like, can we do this anymore? And it's this whole thing, and I feel like Thanksgiving has all this hiddenness to it. And these different layers of figuring out what we're supposed to do, and that really a successful Thanksgiving, at least in my family, is when we avoid difficult topics. Like, as long as, like, no one has said anything about politics, it was a win, right? And so, like, the alcohol's, like, kept to the side, like, no one oversays anything, and if we can just kind of get through it without annoying anyone, then really we've showed gratitude. And I think that each year we sort of miss an opportunity in my family like that. And I think as I've passed on this new tradition to my child about holding the holiness of secrets until other kids can figure it out on their own time, like, how do we do that for each other? And then at what point is it okay to say, we're just not going to tell that story that way anymore? Or this is the age-appropriate time to change that story. I remember how long it took to understand that Thanksgiving was a communal meal, but also about stolen land and disease, and about a frontier land that was settled with blood. It's just real, right? Like, it's part of it. And even as we sat together for a meal of peace, and I think we still do, that it's okay to be honest about an underside of traditional stories that include a colonial past, and still find meaning in the traditional foods, and stopping as a country, regardless of our race or religion, and just share in a meal of community, because that part is really meaningful and important. It's just also not the entire story. And I think that's totally the exact same thing for our own tradition, for the Jewish tradition, that we tell stories about our ancestors in a very linear progression, as if the Torah was written in a vacuum and there's only one point of view and only one story to be told about it. I think especially about this week's portion. It's called Chaye Sarah. And the portion begins about Abraham negotiating a burial site for his wife, Sarah. And we know a lot about their relationship. We see it from the early times. We see them have a child together. They go and preach the word of God to different lands together. They welcome strangers together. They talk to God, and finally welcome this miracle child in old age together. And we know them as characters in our Bible really, really well, both as individuals and as a couple. And so we understand then that it takes several paragraphs for Abraham to mourn her. He's old at this point, but we don't know exactly how old. We just know it's in the hundreds. And most of us assume that this is the whole story, that that's who our patriarch and matriarch are. That's what we just prayed about 5 minutes ago. And it makes sense because Abraham dies shortly thereafter. But it's not how the story ends. After Sarah is buried, Isaac is married to Rebekah. And then, do you know what happens with Abraham? He marries again. Do you remember her name? Come on, Carol, for the win. Go for it. Ritual chair. Sorry, I'm ruining it for you. Keturah. Keturah is her name. Keturah. And then they have 6 sons afterwards. There's 6 other kids that come afterwards in our story. And those 6 sons are considered the fathers of Arab tribes who live in the south and east of Palestine. I know, it's weird if you don't think about it. It's this weird extra thing that happens, and we never hear about Keturah again, or her children, and they're not named as part of the lineage reports beyond their first naming. So he has these kids, they're named, we don't hear about them again in our tradition. So after all the chapters on the marriage of Sarah and Abraham, there's just these 2 sentences on Keturah and Avraham. And John Friedman, who is an editor of the Modern Commentary for Torah, says that Keturah is the most ignored, significant person in the Torah. Rashi, our most well-known rabbinic commentator, believed that Keturah is actually Hagar. the woman who bore Ishmael and who Sarah had cast out into the desert when Isaac was born. It was really common for people to change their names in biblical times, like Avram became Abraham, Sarai became Sarah, and some people believe that Hagar became Keturah. There isn't uniform agreement on this at all, but the parallel is really interesting to think about who Keturah was in relationship to our own narrative as a people. It would mean that Hagar was not abandoned. She was brought back home and reconciled with Abraham, that she was no longer subservient to him as a concubine, but this time was made his wife. That God promises Abraham children at 5 separate times in this one portion alone, after his first wife has died, and says that Abraham will make a nation greater in number than the stars in the heavens and the sands and the seas. So it is possible that with Sarah, Abraham brought forth one nation, and through Hagar, or Keturah, Abraham brought forth another nation, both nations wanted, blessed, and promised by God. Another lesser-known Abraham story, unless it's Carol, was built into his burial, and the text reads, "And Abraham expired and died in a good age, an old man and full of years, and was gathered to his people. Isaac and Ishmael, his sons, buried him in the cave of Machpelah, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar the Hittite, which is before Mamre, the field which Abraham purchased of the people Het. There was Abraham buried, and Sarah his wife." It is a complete surprise that Ishmael pops back into our story. For all of our readers at this point know, Ishmael was sent out into the desert to die when Isaac was young, and until now, the texts have assumed that the two half-brothers have been isolated from one another. Yet the Torah throws them back into the story together to bury their father, as if we know a backstory that's not present in the writing. The Talmud goes crazy with all these hidden stories, and the explanation that I like best includes not just the Talmudic reading of the story, but also how the Quran interprets the banishment and reconnection of Ishmael. According to Muslim sources, Ishmael's wife, Fatima, is the daughter of Muhammad, the prophet of the Muslim people. And then in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, an 8th century Jewish commentary, we read a little-known story about Fatima and her generosity towards Abraham when he went looking for his son, Ishmael. This is the first recorded explicit and positive reference to Islam and our mutual descendants from a Jewish source text. By the time we read of Abraham's burial, Isaac and Ishmael are reunited, a symbol of the possibility that their descendants, the Jewish people and the Muslim people, could unite together as well. The stories of our sages piece together reconciliation between the brothers, between Hagar and Abraham, between whole peoples, because we want to affirm that even if conflict and separation are part of our source stories, they aren't the ending also. Between Judaism and Islam, between Ishmael and Isaac, between the people we love but disagree with, there can be friendship and mutual respect. I think sometimes we hide complicated stories because we think that's the best way to get towards peace. However, if our texts model anything, it's that true reconciliation comes from exploring those hidden narratives together. Do you remember when it first felt like when you learned that Thanksgiving was more complicated than turkey? It was painful. Well, for me it was. Or what it feels like when you learn something new about your faith that you didn't know growing up, like maybe just happened about Keturah. I think it's really uncomfortable to learn that our cultural stories are variegated and to feel like our accounting of a story or our history is different than we originally imagined it. The same is true with our family stories and family and friend relationships. We can't assume that we know how our loved ones feel or how they will react to our honesty. However, leaving truths unspoken might be robbing us of moments of wholeness and depth that can only be found by unpacking the things we don't talk about. Peace may be able to come from silent acceptance, but I'm not sure that peace is what we're all striving for. Rather, peace may be the price we pay for the sake of respectful and honest relationship that can only come from knowing one another's truth. So it's our season of thanks this week, and I wish each of us truth, acceptance, good conversation, and an opening of heart to be able to hear new things. and find greater understanding with the people in our lives that we value and trust. Shabbat Shalom. I will welcome Carol up to share some brief announcements. I even have a sign-up sheet for you as a prop
Oh, thank you.
for this.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll get out of your way.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shabbat Shalom. So there's a whole page of announcements, of course, on the back of your order of service, but there are just a couple that I want to point out. One is to work with a family in asylum. We've talked about this before. It's for the coming week. As a Sanctuary Solidarity congregation, we're supporting a newly arrived family in asylum. They're living in respite housing at Clifton United Methodist Church, and they need rides, help with groceries, meals, and just friendly support. So let us know what you can do. There's an RSVP on the website, and there's also some information. Should I
So
read
you
this?
can come to me or Marta, and we have a
Where's
sign-up
that?
if you want to help out. We have exactly times that we need.
Yeah, we have people who are already doing grocery shopping, but we need babysitting, English lessons, all that kind of thing. So please think about that. And then the next thing is Shabbatish will be December 6th. That's the alternative Jewish worship experience. That's a special Shabbat curated by Rabbi Charlenchamp and Rick Hordinsky. So come as you are. You can sit on the floor, but you can sit on a chair and wear yoga pants or wear your fancy pants and breathe, experience, pray, sing. Everybody's welcome. There are a lot of Hanukkah options going on. So there's a Hanukkah lunch with GPS, I believe. Is that right? Is it December 15th? 19th, thank you. And there's a little form to fill out that everybody should have gotten, so please check on that. There's also a special hoedown with Etz Chaim on the
You have to say Hanukkah Chodown.
Hanukkah hoedown. Wear your cowboy boots. There'll be homemade latkes. There's also going to be something here with Kiddush. Is it the dreidels and donuts on the 27th?
Part of services.
Part of
like a
services.
sing-along service.
And then there's going to be a gays and gelts too. So sign up for any of those that you think of.
What's the last?
Gays and gelts.
What is that?
It'll be fun. Come, find out. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to read our prayer for the community. Well, in fact, everybody can read it with me. All right. May Adonai, the source of life, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless this entire congregation of Temple Shalom, together with the synagogues in Cincinnati and all holy congregations in this world. Bless our community, our children, our families, and all that is theirs, along with those who unite to establish synagogues for prayer and those who enter them to pray, those who devote countless hours of their lives so that our synagogue may be a thriving place of spiritual welcoming. May the Holy One reward those who contribute to our community with healing and forgiveness and personal strength. May God bless them by prospering all their worthy endeavors, as well as those of the entire people of Israel. And let us say, Amen. Oh, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, Micah, and Dr. Bailey, and the choir, who was Stuart, right? Thank you, Stuart. So we'll begin the conclusion of our service on page 287. When you reach that page, please rise. on page 288. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. We mourn the recent passing of Betty Roth, Morris Cohen, and Fran Victor. And we commemorate the yard sites, the anniversaries of the passing of William Ellison, Harry Meltzer, Robert A. Thomas, Florence Horowitz, Dr. Jacob Rader Marcus, Benjamin Maxwell, Max Steiner, Jack Bine, Rose Laibson, Max Gevelber, Jenny Kashkin, Elaine Fliegelman, Ernestine Weil Rathner, Martin Stotzel, George M. Carson, Belle Zimmerman, Ellie Cam, Charlene Sullivan, Martha Lenk, Max Wolfe, Ira Dean Thresher, Scott Carter, Isidore Seidenstein, and David Miller. Are there other names you'd like to contribute to the list of people we're remembering?
John F. Kennedy.
If you are in mourning or commemorating a yard site, please rise first. We acknowledge you, see you, stand with you. As we rise together as a community of comfort, lifting up the memories of all those we mentioned out loud, those we hold in our hearts, and for all those who have known us, say Kaddish for them as we continue with our prayer of affirmation on page 294. Yitkadal v'kadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad yivrach yirteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yom echon v'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, v'galav v'zman kari v'imru. Yehesh me Rabba mevarach leolam omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kedusha. La'ela min kol berachata v'shirata. Tishbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiram b'alma v'imru. Yehesh lama Rabba min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom v'imromav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom v'imromav. Huya aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be a blessing. Please be seated. We're going to conclude on page 322. In Hoshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Hoshienu. Before we go to our kiddush and to our motzi, to our wine, our bread, and where's Shulam Fuel tonight? Gail?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Some of us who want a quick meal are going to Jade Kitchen, and others who want to linger a little longer are going to the Hilton Garden Inn across the street.
Oh, new. So you have two choices, Hilton Garden Inn or Jade Kitchen, and everyone's welcome. And Gail, which one will you bet so the people know?
I'll be at China's.
She'll be at Jade Kitchen, and that's her buddy, so you look for her. If you can connect to one another to receive that blessing. If you're not a toucher, just say no thanks, I'm not a toucher. If you're online, just put your hands out. Whatever works for you. Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha, Shalom, 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 v'yasem lecha, Shalom, Shalom, v'yasem lecha, Shalom, 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 v'yasem lecha, Shalom, Shalom, v'yasem lecha, Shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May Adonai's face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. When God's face shine on you, may it bring all these great memories into your heart. May it fill you with strength and courage to go out and be honest and good, because the world needs you just as you are. And together we say, Shabbat Shalom. Did Martin?